the forest had a rhythm of its own. At night, it breathed. I used to think I was imagining it, the soft rustle of leaves that almost sounded like words, the wind that sometimes hummed as if carrying a melody only I could hear. But after 5 years alone in these woods, I'd learned the difference between the forest's normal whispers and something else. Something alive. That night, the difference was impossible to ignore. It started as a low hum, barely noticeable over the crackle of the fire. I was mending a torn blanket when the sound drifted through the cracks in my cottage wall. It wasn't a bird or the wind or the shifting trees. It was a voice. A woman's voice. Soft. Haunting. Calling my name. Lyra. The needle slipped from my hand. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I froze, listening. The sound came again, floating through the darkness like smoke. Lyra, child of moonlight. My hands trembled. No one should have known my name. I hadn't spoken to another soul in years. Not since the night my world burned. I stood slowly, wrapping my old shawl around my shoulders. The cottage was small, one room, a fireplace, a cot, shelves of herbs and jars I'd gathered from the forest. I'd built a quiet life here, away from everyone who might remember the cursed child of the redwood pack. No one was supposed to find me. I went to the window. Outside, the forest glowed silver beneath the full moon. The light caught on the mist, making everything shimmer as if the air itself had turned to glass. The voice grew louder, beautiful and terrifying, like the kind of song that could break your heart if you listened too long. Lyra, come. I pressed a hand to my chest. My heart beat so hard I could barely breathe. No, I whispered, shaking my head. You're not real. But the sound didn't stop. It rose and fell, a melody so sweet it made my eyes sting with tears. And deep inside me, something stirred, something warm and wild that I hadn't felt in years. It felt like being pulled by invisible strings, like my soul recognized the song even if my mind didn't. I should have stayed inside. I should have closed the shutters, thrown salt on the door, whispered one of my mother's protection charms. Instead, I found myself unbolting the door. The night air rushed in, cold and sharp. The forest was silent now, the song gone, as if it had been waiting for me to step outside. The silence pressed around me, thick and expectant. Hello? I called softly. The only answer was the crunch of leaves beneath my bare feet. Then I saw them. At first, I thought the moonlight was playing tricks on my eyes, but no, the silver glints were moving. Eyes. Dozens of them. Pairs of glowing yellow and red eyes watching from the tree line. Wolves. My breath caught. They were huge, larger than any wolves I'd seen, their fur sleek and dark, their bodies powerful and still. Not wild wolves. Shifters. I stumbled back, heart pounding. My first thought was to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. Every instinct screamed danger, yet, they didn't attack. They just watched. A sound broke the silence, the crunch of boots on the path. The wolves parted like water, and through them walked a man. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Dressed in black leather and a long coat that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. His hair was silver, not white like mine, but silver like polished metal, and his eyes glowed faint gold, catching every flicker of light. I'd never seen him before, but the moment our eyes met, I knew who he was. The Alpha King. Cale Draven, ruler of the Northern Territories. The most powerful werewolf in the known lands. My voice broke as I whispered, "Why are you here?" He stopped a few feet away, his expression unreadable. "Lyra of the Moonbound line," he said quietly. His voice was deep and steady, with a command that could silence storms. "I've been searching for you for years." I took a shaky breath, backing toward my door. "You've made a mistake. I'm no one. Just a healer, just the last of your bloodline," he interrupted, eyes narrowing slightly. "The last Moonbound." The word hit me like a stone. I hadn't heard it in years. My mother used to whisper it like a prayer. Moonbound. The blessed singers. The cursed ones. Those whose voices could bend magic itself. I shook my head hard. "That's not real. Those are stories." Cale took a slow step forward, not threatening, but sure. Stories are often built on truth. "I can't help you," I said quickly. "Whatever you think I am, I'm not." "You can," he said simply. "You just don't know it yet." The wolves behind him shifted restlessly, their eyes still fixed on me. I could feel their energy, hungry, desperate, like a tide pulling me forward. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. Cale's expression softened, just slightly. "Help. My pack is dying, Lyra. A curse is spreading through our blood. Wolves lose their minds, their souls consumed by darkness. My healers are helpless. My witches are dead. You are our last chance. I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to scream that I didn't owe him anything. That no one had come to help me when my parents were murdered, when I was branded cursed and cast out. But instead, I found myself asking quietly, why me? Because your voice can break what was never meant to exist, he said. Because you are your mother's daughter. His words struck deep. He knew about her. I swallowed hard. How do you even know who I am? Kale's gaze didn't waver. Because your mother asked my father for protection before she died. She knew the darkness was coming. She begged him to keep you hidden. He refused. I will not make that mistake again. He stepped closer until the space between us was filled with quiet electricity. The wolves lowered their heads, bowing to him as he spoke. Come with me, Lyra. I'll protect you. I'll help you find the power that sleeps inside you. And if you can't save us, I'll still keep you safe for as long as I breathe. I looked at his hand as he offered it to me, steady, calloused, patient. For a heartbeat, I almost reached for it. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I need time, I said, my voice trembling. One night. Kale's golden eyes studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded once. At dawn, we leave. Decide by then. And just like that, he turned and walked back toward the trees. The wolves followed silently, melting into the mist as if they'd never been there. When the forest was empty again, I closed the door and leaned against it, my knees weak. A curse. A king. The moonbound. My past had finally found me. Sleep never came that night. The Alpha King's words chased me in circles. You are your mother's daughter, your voice can break what was never meant to exist. I hadn't thought about my mother in years, not properly. It hurt too much. But as the fire burned low, I opened the small wooden chest I kept under my bed. Inside lay all that remained of her, an old leather journal, a silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon, and a faded piece of cloth stained with blood. I picked up the pendant. It was warm, as if it remembered her touch. My mother, Ilara, had been a healer. Gentle, soft-spoken, and brave in ways I never understood until it was too late. She always told me our family was different. Not cursed, she'd say, brushing my white hair back from my face. Gifted. The moon marks us for a reason. I hadn't believed her. Not after what happened. When I was 10, the Redwood Pack's alpha declared me a bad omen. White hair, pale eyes, he said I was born of witchcraft. The pack stopped coming for my mother's healing. They whispered when my father walked by. Then the threat started. My parents tried to leave. The night before we fled, someone set fire to our house. I still remembered the smoke. The screams. My father pushing me into the cellar and locking the door. Stay quiet, Lyra, he said. No matter what you hear. When the silence came, it was worse than the screams. By the time I crawled out, everything was ash. My parents were gone. The Alpha told me rogues had attacked. I knew better. He sent me away with nothing but this pendant and my mother's journal. And now the Alpha King stood outside my door asking for help I didn't know how to give. The fire popped. I looked down at the journal, flipping through its fragile pages. My mother's handwriting curled across the parchment, notes about herbs, remedies, healing songs. At the back of the book, I found something I'd never noticed before. A short melody, written in strange symbols. Beneath it, a single line in her handwriting. Only in love does the voice awaken. I traced the words with my finger. What did she mean? Love? How could love have anything to do with power? Before I could think too long, a noise outside startled me. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. I snatched up a knife and crept toward the door. Lyra, a voice called softly. It's me. The door creaked open. Kale stood there, hood drawn low, a lantern in his hand. The light cast his face in golden shadow. I lowered the knife. You shouldn't be here. I could say the same to you, he said, glancing around the small cottage. You've been hiding in the heart of a haunted forest. Half the packs in this land thought you were a ghost. Maybe I am, I said, crossing my arms. Ghosts don't get hunted. Kale's mouth twitched, almost a smile. You've survived longer than most warriors I know. That's not haunting, that's strength. I didn't know how to answer that, so I looked away. Why are you really here? I told you, he said quietly. To ask for your help. But I also came to see if the stories were true. What stories? That the cursed child of Redwood had eyes like the dawn. His gaze met mine. They were right. I felt my face grow hot. You came all this way for poetry? He chuckled softly, the sound low and rough. No. I came because my pack will die without you. Something in his voice broke a wall in me. It wasn't pride or command, it was pain. I hesitated, then asked, how bad is it? Kale's expression darkened. Half of my wolves are losing control. Some can't shift back. Children are born with no bond to their wolves at all. And every night, the curse grows stronger. I can feel it in my own blood. I frowned. You're infected too? He nodded once. I can hold it back for now, but not forever. There was fear in his eyes, quickly hidden, but there. The mighty Alpha King afraid. The thought unsettled me. If you're right, I said slowly, and this curse is real, what makes you think I can fix it? Because the curse feeds on darkness, Kale said, his voice deepening. And you, Lyra, were born of light. The way he said it made me shiver. He believed it. Every word. I wanted to laugh, to call him foolish, but part of me didn't. Part of me wanted to believe there was something good in me after all. That I wasn't just the cursed child who brought death. What if I come with you, I said, and nothing happens? What if I fail? Then I'll bring you back here, Kale said. You'll have gold, food, safety. No one will ever touch you again. But if you succeed, he took a slow breath. You'll save an entire bloodline. Mine included. I stared at him, searching for deception, but found none. His words were simple. Honest. And I realized something then, he wasn't asking me as a king. He was asking me as a man desperate to protect his people. The silence stretched between us, heavy as the moonlight. I'll think about it, I whispered. Kale inclined his head. At dawn, then. He turned to go but paused at the doorway. The moonlight painted his silver hair white. Lyra, he said softly, the forest sings because it remembers you. Don't ignore its call again. And before I could ask what he meant, he disappeared into the trees, leaving me alone with the echo of his words. When dawn finally came, I stood at the door with my mother's pendant around my neck and her journal clutched to my chest. The forest was quiet again, waiting. For the first time in years, I wasn't running away. I was walking toward something. Toward the Alpha King. Toward the truth. Toward the song that had waited too long to be heard. The sun had barely risen when I stepped outside. The forest mist clung to my dress, cool against my skin, and the morning air smelled of pine and wet earth. I tightened my mother's shawl around my shoulders and tried to steady my heart. They were waiting for me. Dozens of wolves stood at the edge of the clearing, massive, silent, their fur gleaming with dew. Some shifted restlessly, others stood perfectly still, but all of them watched me with the same strange expression, reverence, and maybe a little fear. Then I saw him. Kale Draven sat on a black horse at the center of the group. He wore dark armor beneath a long traveling cloak, the kind meant for battle, not ceremony. His silver hair caught the sunlight, and when his eyes found me, I felt the air change. You came, he said quietly. I said I would, I replied, though my voice shook more than I wanted it to. He smiled just slightly, an expression that looked foreign on him. Then the North has hope again. The wolves parted as he rode closer. I could feel their presence like heat on my skin. Each one bowed its head as Kale passed, and I realized that this wasn't just a pack, it was an army. He stopped in front of me and dismounted with a smooth movement that seemed too graceful for his size. We travel north, he said. It will take a week if the weather holds. You'll ride with me. I can walk, I protested automatically. I know, he said, and there was a faint amusement in his eyes. But I'd rather you not arrive half dead from exhaustion. I hesitated before taking his hand. His palm was warm and rough, and the contact made my stomach flutter with nerves I didn't want to name. He helped me up onto the horse, then swung up behind me. I could feel the steady strength of him as he took the reins. Hold on, he murmured near my ear. The horse started forward, and the pack followed in perfect formation. We rode through the forest for hours, the rhythm of hoofbeats and paws filling the silence. The land changed as we moved north, trees grew denser, the air colder, the sunlight dimmer as clouds gathered overhead. After a while, I found my voice. How long has your pack been cursed? Kale's jaw tightened. 3 years. And you've tried everything? Every healer, every witch, every ritual we could find, he said quietly. Some of my best warriors have lost themselves. Others, we've had to put them down. There was grief in his voice, hidden beneath command. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. Just help us." We rode in silence for a while longer. I studied him from the corner of my eye. Kale Draven wasn't what I expected. For all the stories I'd heard of the ruthless Alpha King, there was something steady and strangely gentle in him. He spoke to his wolves with calm respect, never barked orders, never treated anyone as less. When we stopped at midday to rest, one of the wolves shifted into a tall man with gray-streaked hair and kind amber eyes. He bowed slightly to Kale. "Storm," Kale greeted him. "This is Lyra." Storm smiled at me. "So the moonbound bloodline still lives. My mother told stories of your kind when I was a boy." I flushed. "They're just stories. Stories that keep hope alive," he said gently. Kale motioned for us to sit. The pack unpacked food, simple bread, dried meat, water from the stream. I sat beside the fire, grateful for the warmth. Storm passed me a canteen. "My daughter's one of the afflicted," he said quietly. "She's 14. Used to run through the woods faster than anyone. Now she can barely shift for more than a few minutes. She forgets herself sometimes." "I'm sorry," I whispered. He nodded. "If you can help her, if you can help any of them, you'll have my loyalty forever." His words sank deep. I wanted to promise I could help, but I couldn't lie. "I'll try," I said. Kale watched me from across the fire, his golden eyes unreadable. As dusk fell, we set up camp. The wolves took positions in a circle around the clearing, a living barrier. Kale built his tent near mine and posted guards outside both. When the others were asleep, I stepped out to watch the stars. Kale was sitting by the fire, staring into the flames. "You should rest," he said without looking up. "So should you," I answered. He glanced up, one eyebrow raised. "Do you always talk back to kings?" "Only the ones who show up at my door uninvited." He chuckled softly, and the sound warmed something inside me. For a while, we sat in silence. Then he said, "You don't have to be afraid of them, you know. My wolves." "I'm not afraid," I said quickly, though my pulse betrayed me. "Good," he murmured. "They'd never harm you. The night song you heard, that was them calling to you. Our seers said your blood would answer when we were close enough." So that song. It was a summoning. One only a moonbound could hear. I shivered. "You make it sound like fate." "Maybe it is," he said quietly. "Or maybe it's mercy." The fire crackled. The night deepened. I looked at him, at the faint shadows under his eyes, the exhaustion he tried to hide. "What happens if I can't break the curse?" I asked softly. He met my gaze, and for the first time, I saw fear in his. "Then we all die," he said. "Including me." The flames flickered between us, and neither of us spoke again. By the third day of travel, the forest had thinned into vast, snow-dusted plains. The wind howled against us, sharp and biting, but the wolves pressed on without complaint. I had grown used to the rhythm of the journey, the steady beat of hooves, the rustle of fur, the low growls exchanged between scouts. Kale rarely spoke unless necessary, but when he did, his voice carried quiet authority. On the fourth night, a storm forced us to take shelter in an abandoned watchtower. The wind screamed through the cracks in the walls, and the fire inside flickered wildly. Kale was pacing near the doorway, his expression dark. I sat by the fire with a blanket around my shoulders, pretending to read my mother's journal though my eyes could barely focus. Finally, I said, "You've been pacing for an hour. What's wrong?" He stopped, glancing toward me. "Scouts found tracks nearby. Feral wolves. We'll have to move before dawn." "Feral?" I asked. "Those completely lost to the curse. They attack anything that moves, even their own." I swallowed hard. "And if they find us?" He met my eyes. "Then I kill them before they reach you." The words were simple, but there was steel in them. I nodded, unsure what to say. When the storm eased a little, Kale joined me by the fire. His cloak was soaked, his hair damp. For the first time, he looked less like a king and more like a man carrying too much. "Why did you come for me yourself?" I asked quietly. "You could have sent anyone." "Because they wouldn't have returned with you alive," he said. I frowned. "You think I'd attack them?" "I think most men can't be trusted to treat power with respect," he said. "And you are power. Even if you don't see it yet." His words unsettled me. I looked down at the journal in my hands. My mother said power without love destroys the one who holds it. Kale studied me, eyes thoughtful. "Do you believe that?" "I don't know. I've seen love destroy people too. For a moment, the only sound was the wind outside. Then Kale said softly, maybe it's not love that destroys us. Maybe it's fear of losing it. I looked up. He was staring into the fire, the light catching the sharp lines of his face. There was a sadness there that I hadn't noticed before, buried deep beneath control. You've lost someone, I said quietly. He didn't answer at first. Then, my sister. The curse took her first. She was only 16. I felt a lump rise in my throat. I'm sorry. He nodded once, the movement tight. That's why I can't fail. I won't let it take anyone else. For a long time, we sat without speaking. The storm had quieted outside, replaced by the steady rhythm of rain. Then Kale said, when we reach the fortress, you'll have everything you need, food, warmth, freedom to study your gift. I'll assign guards to protect you at all times. I don't want guards, I said. They're not for you, he replied. They're for anyone who might try to stop you. Stop me from what? From saving us, he said simply. I stared at him. You think your people will try to hurt me? Some will, he said. Fear makes monsters of good men. The honesty in his voice sent a chill through me. I had lived that truth before. Then why risk it? I asked softly. Why bring me into your home if I might divide your pack? Because you're worth the risk. His words hung between us like a spark waiting to catch fire. I looked down, pretending to adjust my blanket, but I could feel the heat rise in my face. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. You came with me when you didn't have to. You face what scares you. You speak truth even when it trembles. That's more than most. I didn't know what to say. His gaze was steady, not romantic, not demanding, just sure. Like he'd already decided something about me that I hadn't yet. Before I could answer, a growl echoed outside. One of the guards barked a warning. Kale was on his feet instantly, sword in hand. Stay here, he ordered. I stood too. What is it? Feral wolves, he said, already moving toward the door. Wait, Kale. He was gone before I could finish. The sounds outside were chaos, snarls, steel, shouts. I ran to the doorway just in time to see shapes moving through the rain, wolves with glowing red eyes, twisted and wrong. They lunged at Kale's soldiers, faster than I could track. Kale shifted mid-stride, his body dissolving into shadow and fur. His wolf was enormous, silver-black, eyes burning gold. He hit one of the feral beasts with such force that the ground shook. I pressed a hand to my chest. My heart pounded in time with the battle. A scream echoed from my left. One of the guards went down. Instinct took over. I grabbed the herbs from my pouch and ran to him, ignoring the rain and the fear clawing at my throat. His shoulder was torn open, blood spilling fast. Hold still, I said, pressing my hands over the wound. I whispered one of my mother's healing chants, the only one I could remember fully. It wasn't magic, not real magic, but the rhythm steadied my hands. The guard's breathing slowed. When I looked up, Kale stood a few feet away, his wolf form dissolving back into human shape. He was bleeding from a deep gash across his chest. Kale. I ran to him. You're hurt. It's nothing, he said, though his voice was rough. It's not nothing. I tore a strip from my shawl and pressed it against the wound. His skin was warm beneath my fingers, his pulse strong but uneven. He caught my wrist gently. You shouldn't touch a cursed man. I looked up at him. Then stop bleeding and I'll stop helping. For a second, he just stared at me. Then, to my surprise, he laughed, quiet and low, but real. Stubborn, he said. Just like your mother, I suppose. How would you know? She once saved my father's life, he said softly. I was a boy then, but I remember her song. It made the whole camp go still. I blinked. You heard her sing? He nodded. It was the last time I believed in miracles. The words made my chest ache. I pressed harder on the cloth, and after a while, the bleeding slowed. When he finally looked at me again, the gold in his eyes had softened. You shouldn't have followed me outside, he said. You shouldn't fight alone, I answered. He smiled faintly. Then we're both terrible at listening. We stayed like that for a moment, rain dripping from our hair, the firelight flickering weakly behind us. Finally, Kale said, You asked before why I came myself. It's because I made a promise, to your mother. She told me that one day, her daughter would be needed. That when the moon called, I was to find you and protect you at any cost. I stared at him, my voice barely a whisper. She said that. She did. And I keep my promises. He rose slowly, wincing as the movement stretched his wound. I stood too, my legs shaking. Get some rest, Lyra, he said. Tomorrow, we ride for the fortress. The real battle begins there. As he walked back toward his tent, I pressed my hand against my mother's pendant. The silver was warm against my skin, almost pulsing with life. For the first time, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, the moon really had called me here. And if it had, what it would demand in return. The storm passed by morning, leaving the world washed clean. The sky stretched pale blue over the plains, and the grass shimmered with dew. The pack moved in silence, shaken but determined. Cale rode at the front again, his wound bandaged, though I could see the stiffness in his movements. He hadn't rested properly, of course. Alpha Kings didn't rest, they carried too much weight to stop. I followed on a smaller horse beside Storm. He rode quietly, his kind eyes scanning the horizon. Every so often, he glanced at Cale like a father watching over a son who refused to take care of himself. Has he always been like that? I asked softly. Since the day he became Alpha, Storm said. He lost both his parents in the war with the Southern Packs. Took command before he was 20. He doesn't know how to stop fighting. He doesn't know how to ask for help either, I murmured. Storm smiled faintly. No. But maybe he's learning. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure I believed that. The land began to rise as we approached the northern mountains. By noon, snow dusted the edges of the trail, and the air grew colder. I pulled my cloak tighter and tried not to shiver. Every sound in the forest seemed sharper here, the crunch of snow under hooves, the sigh of wind through the trees. The deeper we went, the more I felt something stirring under my skin. It was faint at first, like a vibration, but it grew stronger with each mile. By evening, the hum in my chest was impossible to ignore. We made camp near a frozen stream. The wolves spread out in their usual formation, silent guardians against whatever lurked beyond the tree line. I sat near the fire, trying to read my mother's journal again, but the words swam on the page. My head throbbed. My pulse felt too fast. The hum inside me grew louder, like a song trying to escape. Lyra. I looked up. Cale stood across the fire, his expression concerned. You're pale. I'm fine, I said quickly. Just tired. He didn't believe me. He crossed the fire and crouched beside me. You're shaking. I said I'm fine, I repeated, though even to my ears, it sounded unconvincing. Cale frowned, then reached out and touched my wrist. The moment his fingers brushed my skin, the hum inside me flared. It wasn't painful, just overwhelming. The world tilted. My breath caught as something inside me opened, wide and bright. Lyra. Cale caught me before I could fall. His voice sounded far away, muffled under the roaring in my ears. The humming became a melody, soft, wordless, but achingly familiar. It poured through me, through every heartbeat, every breath. The trees seemed to lean closer, the air shimmering with faint silver light. It felt like the forest was listening. I could see flashes of memory that weren't mine, my mother standing beneath a full moon, her face lifted to the sky, her lips moving in song. My father behind her, watching with awe. Their voices mingling with the wind. When I gasped for air, Cale pulled me closer. Lyra, talk to me. What's happening? I hear something, I whispered. A song. It's in my head, no, in my blood. His eyes widened. The moonbound song. I don't know. It hurts. He held me tighter, steady and solid as the ground swayed beneath me. Breathe. Focus on my voice. You're safe. The moment he said those words, the pressure eased. The hum softened until it was only a faint echo again. My body sagged against him, exhausted. Cale brushed a strand of hair from my face. Better? I nodded weakly. What was that? Your power, he said softly. Or the beginning of it. I shook my head. It can't be. I didn't do anything. You didn't have to. The forest recognized you. It's been waiting. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't deny what I'd felt. The song hadn't been just sound, it had been life. Magic. Cale helped me sit up, his hand steadying me. You'll need guidance, he said. When we reach the fortress, I'll have Vera, the head healer, teach you the old rites. She studied the moonbound for years. I'm not sure I can control it. You will, he said firmly. You're stronger than you think. I looked up at him, at the sincerity in his eyes, and something inside me eased. Maybe it was the way he said it, as if he already believed I could do the impossible. Rest, he murmured. We ride at dawn. He started to stand, but I caught his wrist. Cale, what if I fail? He looked down at me, his gaze steady. Then we fail together. But we don't stop trying. The words wrapped around me like a promise. That night, I dreamed of my mother again. She was singing under the moon, her voice a thread of silver light. She turned toward me, smiling, and whispered, "Don't run from it, Lyra. The song is your birthright." When I woke, the hum in my chest was quiet again, but it was still there, waiting. By the 7th day, the fortress came into view. It rose from the side of the mountain like something carved by gods, towers of dark stone, sharp against the pale sky. The walls shimmered faintly with protective runes, though many were cracked and fading. The pack fell silent as we approached. Even the wind seemed to hush. Cale dismounted first and offered me his hand. "Welcome to the Obsidian Fortress," he said. "Home of the Northern Wolves." I stared up at it, awed and a little afraid. "It looks wounded." "It is," he said quietly. "Like the people inside." As we rode through the gates, wolves and shifters gathered to watch. Their faces were wary, some curious, others openly hostile. I heard the whispers. "The moonbound go. The cursed one." My stomach twisted. Cale noticed. "Ignore them. They've lost too much. Fear makes them cruel." "I'm used to it," I said softly. He gave me a look that made me think he didn't like that answer at all. Inside the fortress walls, I saw the curse for myself. Wolves limped through the courtyards, their movements jerky and unnatural. Some had eyes that flickered red. In a cage near the training ground, a feral wolf threw itself against the bars, snarling until blood stained its muzzle. Cale stopped beside me. "Those are the ones too far gone," he said quietly. "We keep them safe until we can't anymore." The pain in his voice made my throat tighten. He turned to one of the guards. "Take Lyra to the tower chambers. She's to have whatever she needs." The guard nodded and motioned for me to follow. Cale caught my arm before I left. "I'll come for you later. Rest until then." I nodded and followed the guard through winding halls lit by flickering torches. The fortress was enormous, but it felt empty, like a house mourning its own ghosts. My room was at the top of the highest tower. It was warm, with a fireplace already lit and a window overlooking the snowy valley. On a small table near the bed sat a tray of food, fresh bread, fruit, hot tea. I didn't realize how hungry I was until I started eating. When I finished, exhaustion washed over me. I hadn't slept properly in days. But before I could lie down, someone knocked on the door. "Come in," I said. An older woman entered, wrapped in a long cloak embroidered with silver thread. Her hair was white, but her eyes were bright as amber. She smiled warmly. "You must be Lyra. I'm Vera, the pack's healer." I stood quickly. "You know who I am?" "Oh yes," she said, setting down a small satchel. "The Alpha told me everything. I've been studying the moonbound for a long time. I never thought I'd meet one in the flesh." "I don't think I'm what you expect," I said. "None of us ever are," she replied gently. "May I?" She gestured to my hands. I hesitated, then offered them. She turned them over carefully, tracing faint marks near my wrists, pale, almost invisible lines that shimmered in the firelight. "The moon's touch," she murmured. "Your blood sings already. That's good." "It doesn't feel good," I admitted. "It feels like I might break apart." Vera smiled knowingly. "All beginnings do. The gift is like a muscle you haven't used in years, it will hurt before it grows." She opened her satchel and pulled out a small crystal vial filled with silver liquid. "Moon water," she explained. "Drink this tonight. It will help your body align with the song." I took it, unsure but trusting her. "Thank you. Rest now," she said. "Tomorrow, we begin your training." After she left, I went to the window. The moon hung low over the mountains, full and bright. Below, the fortress glowed faintly with lanterns. I could hear distant howls, mournful, longing. I thought of Cale out there somewhere, carrying the weight of an entire kingdom. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I whispered into the night, "Please let me be enough." The moonlight shimmered against the glass, as if answering. Cale returned later, just as Vera had promised. He looked exhausted but calmer. "You're settling in?" "Yes." "Vera brought me moon water." He nodded. "She'll help you control the song. She's the only one who still remembers the old ways." "Will it really work?" He hesitated. It has to. I studied him. You always sound so certain, even when you're not. That's part of the job, he said with a small smile. Alphas can't afford doubt. Even kings are allowed to be human. He laughed quietly. Tell that to the pack. The laughter faded, replaced by a softer silence. The firelight flickered over his face, highlighting the faint scar along his jaw, the tired lines around his eyes. I saw the cages, I said quietly. The ones who've turned. His jaw tightened. They were my friends once. Maybe they still are, I said. If I can help them. You will, he interrupted gently. But not tonight. Tonight, you rest. He turned to leave, but I reached out impulsively. Kale, thank you. For not giving up on them. Or me. He looked at me, eyes warm with something I couldn't name. You're worth fighting for, Lyra. Don't forget that. When he was gone, I sat by the window again, watching snow fall softly over the valley. My mother's pendant glowed faintly in the moonlight, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost hiding from the world. For the first time, I felt alive. The song in my blood whispered faintly, waiting. And I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The first morning in the fortress began with the sound of bells. Not loud ones, but soft and slow, echoing through the stone halls like distant heartbeats. I woke to pale light filtering through the tall window, the sky outside still gray with dawn. For a moment, I almost forgot where I was. Then the memories returned, the journey, Kale's words, the strange song that had shaken me to my core. I dressed quickly, wrapping myself in the warm cloak that Vera had left at the foot of my bed. The air in the fortress was cool, and when I opened the door, a young servant was waiting. Lady Lyra, she said shyly, bowing her head. The Alpha asked me to bring you to the council hall. Lady Lyra. The title sounded wrong, like a costume that didn't fit. But I followed her anyway, my footsteps echoing on the cold stone floors. The fortress was busier than I expected. Wolves and shifters moved through the corridors carrying weapons, books, and crates of herbs. Many looked sick, pale, limping, or trembling. Their eyes flickered between gold and red, the sign of the curse's hold. When they saw me, some looked away quickly. Others stared openly, curiosity and fear mixing in their gazes. We reached a set of tall doors carved with the image of a moon surrounded by runes. The servant knocked once and pushed them open. The room beyond was enormous, with a long wooden table and a map of the northern lands spread across it. Kale stood at the head of the table, his back to me. Around him were 4 others. He turned when I entered. Lyra. You're awake. Good. His smile was brief but genuine. Come. There are people I want you to meet. I stepped closer, nervous under the weight of so many eyes. This is Storm, Kale said, gesturing to the gray-haired man I already knew. You've met him. Storm nodded at me with a kind smile. Glad to see you up and walking, Lady Lyra. And this is Myra, Kale continued, motioning to a tall woman with short auburn hair and fierce green eyes. She commands the outer patrols. Myra gave a short bow, her expression sharp but not unkind. So you're the moonbound. Didn't think you'd look so human. I blinked. That's a compliment. She smirked. Mostly. Kale gave her a warning look before turning to the third person, a quiet man standing slightly behind the others. His hair was black as ink, his eyes pale blue and strangely still. This is Ash, Kale said. My personal guard. He's been with me since we were children. Ash inclined his head. It's an honor, Lady Lyra. I nodded awkwardly. Just Lyra is fine. And you've already met Vera, Kale added, as the elderly healer entered the room carrying a tray of steaming cups. She's our lawkeeper and the one who will guide your training. Vera handed me a cup of tea and smiled. You'll need your strength today. I sipped carefully. The tea was herbal and faintly sweet, calming the nervous flutter in my stomach. Kale leaned over the map. Before we begin training, you should understand what you're facing. He pointed to several red marks scattered across the map. These are the villages still under our control. The black marks, his hand hesitated over a cluster of symbols. They've fallen. The curse spreads faster each week. Entire families vanish. Some return changed, feral. I stared at the marks, the scale of it sinking in. You've been fighting this for 3 years? Yes, Kale said quietly. And losing ground every season. What happens to the cursed? I asked. Storm answered softly. They lose the bond to their wolves. then to themselves. When the change is complete, they become something else, something that hungers for destruction. A chill crept through me. And no cure? None, Kale said. Until now. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. I swallowed hard. You're putting a lot of faith in a story. Kale's gaze held mine. Sometimes stories are the only thing that keep us alive. The weight of his belief made my chest ache. I'll do what I can. That's all I ask, he said simply. Training began that afternoon. Vera led me to a circular room high in the east tower. It was filled with old scrolls, strange instruments, and tall windows that let in light from every direction. This will be your sanctuary, she said. And your battlefield. She handed me a small silver bowl filled with water that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Focus on the surface, she instructed. Listen for the heartbeat of the moon inside you. I stared at the bowl. The moon has a heartbeat. Vera smiled. In a manner of speaking. The moonbound gift isn't about singing for beauty. It's about harmony, aligning your soul with the rhythm of the world. Try humming. Let the sound come from your chest, not your throat. I hesitated but obeyed. My first hum was shaky and off-key. The water rippled slightly, then stilled. Again, Vera urged. I tried, again and again. Sometimes the water moved, sometimes not. My throat grew sore, and frustration burned behind my eyes. After hours, I dropped my hands with a sigh. It's useless. Magic rarely comes to the impatient, Vera said calmly. You're learning to speak a language older than the stars. Give yourself time. Her words were gentle but firm, and I nodded reluctantly. Still, when I left the tower that evening, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. I felt no closer to understanding this gift than when I began. Kale found me in the courtyard, sitting on the steps with my head in my hands. Rough day? He asked. I looked up. You could say that. He sat beside me, the weight of his presence grounding. Vera pushes hard, but she means well. I know, I said. I just thought I'd feel something. Some spark, some sign that I can actually do this. But it's like trying to remember a song I never learned. Kale glanced at me, eyes thoughtful. Maybe you're trying too hard. The moon doesn't force the tide, it draws it gently. That's poetic, I said. Do you always talk like that? He smiled faintly. Only when I'm trying to sound wiser than I am. Despite my frustration, I laughed. The sound surprised both of us. For a moment, the fortress didn't feel so heavy. Days passed. Then weeks. Each morning began before dawn with meditation and voice exercises. Vera made me memorize old chants written in languages I barely understood. She said the syllables were keys, each unlocking a different resonance within the soul. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I tried. Sometimes the exercises left me dizzy. Other times, nothing happened at all. I could feel the power under my skin, like light behind a curtain, but I couldn't reach it. Kale checked on me often. He never stayed long, but his quiet encouragement kept me going. When frustration threatened to break me, I remembered his words, the moon draws the tide gently. I wasn't gentle by nature, but I was stubborn. So I kept trying. One afternoon, Vera and I were working in the practice chamber when the sound of shouting echoed through the hall. The door burst open and a soldier stumbled in, his face pale. Alpha, he gasped, then realized Kale wasn't there. His eyes fell on me instead. The training field, it's happening again. We ran. Outside, a crowd had gathered near the stables. 2 wolves were fighting, massive, snarling, their fur bristling. One had red eyes blazing like coals. The curse. Back, someone shouted. He's lost control. The cursed wolf lunged, claws slashing. The other wolf yelped, blood spraying across the snow. The scent hit me like a slap. My vision blurred. The hum inside me roared to life. Lyra, wait, Vera called, but I was already moving. I stepped between them before I could think. The cursed wolf turned toward me, teeth bared, lips curling in a snarl that promised death. But instead of fear, a strange calm washed over me. The hum rose in my chest, becoming sound. A single note escaped my lips, soft, trembling, but real. It vibrated in the air, golden and pure. The wolf froze mid-lunge, eyes flickering between red and yellow. The growl died in its throat. Around us, silence fell. The note faded, and the wolf collapsed to the ground, panting. The other wolves dragged it away, murmuring prayers. I stood trembling, my throat aching, the world spinning. Kale appeared at my side, eyes wide. What did you do? I don't know, I whispered. It just happened. He caught my arm, steadying me. You stopped a feral wolf with one note. That's not nothing. I could barely stand. It felt like something inside me broke open. Vera arrived, breathless. She examined the cursed wolf, now unconscious but breathing evenly. It's stable, she said in disbelief. The red has left its eyes. Lyra, you calmed it. My knees buckled. Kale caught me before I hit the ground. Enough for today, he said firmly. She needs rest. Later, in my chamber, Vera mixed herbs while Kale paced like a caged wolf. She pushed too hard, Vera scolded. The gift isn't meant to be forced. It draws on her life energy. I didn't mean to, I mumbled from the bed. My head throbbed, my voice hoarse. I just wanted it to stop fighting. Kale stopped pacing. And it did. That's what worries me, Vera said. If her gift reacts to emotion, she could hurt herself. Or worse. Kale looked at me, concern shadowing his eyes. From now on, you don't use the song without supervision. Understood. I managed a weak nod. Good. He turned to leave, then hesitated at the door. You saved a life today, Lyra. Don't forget that. After they left, I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts tangled. I should have felt proud, but fear lingered instead. The power that had come through me wasn't gentle, it was vast, wild, unstoppable. What if I lost control next time? That night, I dreamed of fire. Of my parents' house burning, and a voice in the flames whispering, power without balance consumes. The next few days blurred together. The news of the training field spread quickly through the fortress. Some looked at me with awe now, others with suspicion. I tried to ignore both. Kale seemed busier than ever, holding council meetings that stretched late into the night. When I saw him, exhaustion lined his face. Yet whenever he passed me in the hall, he still found the strength to say, "You're doing well." Somehow, those 3 words kept me going. But I noticed the changes too, the faint red flicker in his eyes when he thought no one was looking, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands sometimes trembled. The curse was eating at him. One evening, I found him alone in the courtyard, staring out at the mountains. Snowflakes clung to his hair. You should be resting, I said softly. So should you, he replied without turning. I stepped closer. How bad is it? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, some days, I feel it pressing against my mind. Like a second heartbeat, waiting for me to slip. My throat tightened. Kale. He turned, his golden eyes faintly rimmed with red. It's only a matter of time before I lose control. That's why I needed you here. No, I said fiercely. That's why you need hope here. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he smiled, a small, tired smile that made my chest ache. You really believe you can save us, don't you? I believe I have to try, I said. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him even in the cold. Then maybe I can believe it too. The snow fell silently around us. And for the first time, I thought I saw something like peace in his eyes. Winter deepened around the fortress. Frost coated the windows each morning, turning the world outside into silver and white. The cold made the stone walls ache, and the air inside grew heavy with the scent of smoke and herbs. Life continued, but slower. Quieter. My training sessions with Vera became the only thing that marked the days. We worked from dawn until late afternoon, pushing my limits little by little. I learned to control the sound that had once burst from me like a flood. Vera called it resonance, the balance between emotion and energy. But no matter how much I practiced, the song never came as easily as that first time. It was like chasing a shadow. Some days, I left the tower trembling from exhaustion. One evening, I went looking for Kale. I hadn't seen him in nearly 2 days, and a strange worry had settled in my chest. I found Storm outside the war hall, speaking in low tones to another soldier. His face was grim. Storm? I called softly. He turned, his expression flickering with surprise before smoothing into a polite smile. Lady Lyra. Have you seen Kale? I asked. A pause, too long to be casual. Occupied. Council matters. The hesitation made my stomach tighten. What's wrong? Storm sighed, glancing around before lowering his voice. You didn't hear it from me, but the Alpha's been hiding how far the curse has spread. It's stronger in him than he lets on. My heart lurched. How strong? He hasn't slept in 3 nights. The red in his eyes doesn't fade anymore. He's holding it back by sheer will. I swallowed. Where is he now? In the east wing. The chambers near the old chapel. Thank you, I said, already moving before he could stop me. The east wing was dark, lit only by the occasional flicker of torchlight. The air smelled faintly of iron and smoke. I followed the faint sound of growling, low, pained, and unmistakably inhuman. Cale? I called softly. The sound stopped. Then came his voice, rough and strained. Lyra, don't come closer. Ignoring him, I pushed open the door. The room beyond was small, its walls bare except for claw marks gouged deep into the stone. Cale was on his knees in the center, shirt torn, blood dripping from his palms. His eyes glowed a fierce, unnatural red. For a moment, I couldn't move. He looked like a creature forged from fury and fire. Leave, he rasped. Now. No, I said quietly. Not until you tell me what's happening. He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You can see what's happening. The growl in his voice sent a shiver through me, but I didn't step back. You're fighting it. Barely. His breathing was ragged. Each day it gets stronger. The curse is feeding on my wolf. Soon, there'll be nothing left to fight. I crossed the room before I could think. Then let me help. His head snapped up. You can't. Maybe I can, I insisted. Vera said my song can calm feral wolves. Maybe. I'm not one of them yet, he interrupted sharply. If you use your power on me while it's this unstable, it could tear us both apart. The anger in his tone wasn't directed at me, but it still cut deep. I knelt beside him anyway. Then what do you expect to do? Wait until you lose control and someone has to put you down. His jaw clenched. If that's what it takes to protect the pack, yes. I shook my head. You're their leader. They need you alive, not martyred. He closed his eyes. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence pressed heavy, filled only by his uneven breathing. Then I reached out, hesitating just a heartbeat before touching his arm. His skin burned with fever. You're not alone in this, I whispered. When he opened his eyes again, the red had dimmed slightly. You should be afraid of me. I was, I admitted. Once. But not anymore. Something in him cracked at that. His shoulders sagged, and he bowed his head. You don't understand. Every moment I spend near you, the curse pulls harder. It wants what I want. The confession startled me. What do you mean? His gaze met mine, raw, unguarded. You think the curse feeds only on pain? It feeds on desire too. On everything I've tried to bury. The air between us shifted. His breath came fast, shallow. I could feel the heat radiating from him, the wild power trembling just beneath his skin. I forced myself to stay steady. Then you fight it. The way you fight everything else. His hand moved toward my face before stopping midway, fingers curling. If I touch you now, I might not stop. I swallowed hard. Then trust me to stop you. The flicker of red in his eyes softened to gold again. Slowly, he pulled back. After a long silence, he whispered, You shouldn't have come. I had to. He gave a faint, exhausted smile. You're as stubborn as she was. Who? Your mother. He exhaled shakily. She once told my father that courage is choosing to stand still when every instinct tells you to run. You have her courage, Lyra. The ache in my chest deepened. She was brave, I said softly. So are you. He reached for a nearby cloth and wiped the blood from his hands. When he spoke again, his voice was steadier. Go back to your room. I'll rest, I promise. You mean that? He met my gaze. You have my word. I stood slowly, reluctant to leave. At the door, I glanced back. Cale was sitting in silence, his head bowed, the faint glow in his eyes fading. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked fragile. Human. And that frightened me more than the curse ever could. I didn't sleep that night. My thoughts kept circling the same truth. Cale was running out of time, and I was running out of excuses. The power in me was still wild, untrained, and every attempt to control it drained me. But if I didn't master it soon, the pack would lose more than their alpha. They'd lose their hope. By morning, I decided. I wasn't waiting anymore. When Vera arrived for our usual lesson, I met her at the door. Teach me the old songs, I said. All of them. Her eyes widened. That could take years. Then start now. She studied me for a long moment before sighing. Very well. But understand, these songs aren't like the ones you know. They aren't meant for beauty. They are prayers carved in sound. I'll learn, I said. And I did. The next few days became a blur of words and melodies. Vera taught me how each tone carried meaning, how sorrow could mend, how hope could heal. I practiced until my voice cracked, until my hands shook. Sometimes I caught glimpses of progress, a faint shimmer in the air, a warmth blooming through my chest. But the control still slipped away too easily. It was on the fifth night that everything went wrong. We were in the training chamber when a horn sounded in the distance, long, sharp, urgent. Cale burst through the door moments later, his armor half-fastened. "Feral wolves in the outer fields," he said. "Too many for the guards to handle." Vera's eyes widened. "Then the curse is spreading faster than we feared." Cale turned to me. "Stay here." "I can help," I said immediately. "No," he snapped. "You're not ready." Before I could argue, he was gone. But I couldn't stay behind. Not when I'd already seen what the curse did. Not when I could feel the power inside me clawing to be used. I ran after him. The night was chaos. The courtyard blazed with torches, and the air rang with snarls and shouts. Wolves fought in the snow, massive, blood-soaked, their eyes glowing red. The stench of iron filled the air. Cale's soldiers struggled to contain them, but the ferals moved like demons, faster and stronger than anything natural. I spotted Cale near the gate, his wolf form tearing through the cursed ones with deadly precision. But for every enemy he felled, two more took its place. Without thinking, I lifted my voice. The first note came rough, torn by fear. The second was stronger. The air shimmered. The wolves nearest me froze mid-attack, their snarls faltering. I kept singing, reaching for the warmth in my chest, the thread of light I'd felt before. And it worked. For a heartbeat, everything stilled. The red faded from their eyes. I felt the bond, the thin, trembling connection between their lost humanity and the wild magic consuming them. I reached for it with my song, trying to pull them back. But the power surged too quickly. It rushed through me like fire, burning every nerve. My knees buckled, but the song wouldn't stop. It wasn't mine anymore, it was the forest's, the moon's, something vast and ancient using me as a vessel. The wolves screamed. The light shattered. When the sound finally broke, I collapsed. My vision swam. The world tilted sideways. Cale's voice cut through the ringing in my ears. "Lyra." He was there in an instant, catching me before I hit the ground. His face blurred above mine, blood and snow streaking his skin. "Why didn't you stay inside?" "I had to try," I whispered. My voice was barely a breath. He pressed a hand to my cheek, anger and fear warring in his eyes. "You could have died." "Then at least it would have meant something," I murmured, fading. His expression broke. "Don't say that. Not you." The last thing I felt before darkness took me was his hand clutching mine, his heartbeat pounding wild against my ear. When I woke, the room smelled of herbs and smoke. My body ached as if I'd been struck by lightning. Vera sat beside the bed, muttering under her breath as she changed the bandages on my arm. "You're awake," she said without looking up. "Thank the moon." "What happened?" My voice cracked. "You nearly burned yourself out," she said sharply. "The power you released was enough to stop the feral attack, but at a price. Half the pack is still recovering from the shockwave. And you," she frowned. "You were lucky to survive." I tried to sit up, but the room spun. "Where's Cale?" "In his chambers," she said. "He hasn't left since he carried you in. I think he blames himself." "He shouldn't. Try telling him that." A knock sounded at the door. Vera sighed. "Speak of the devil." She stood. "I'll give you two a moment." Cale entered as she left. His usual composure was gone, his hair was unkempt, his armor still stained. But his eyes were gold again. Clear. "You shouldn't be on your feet," he said, crossing to the bed. "I'm not." He sat beside me, his jaw tight. "You scared me." I tried to smile. "That's not easy to do. It is when I care about the person in danger." The words made my breath catch. "You care." He met my gaze. "More than I should." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the crackle of fire. Then he said softly, "You saved us tonight. Every one of us owes you our lives." "I almost destroyed myself doing it," I admitted. Vera said the magic was too strong. "She's right," Cale said. "But I think it's not strength you lack, it's control. We'll find a way." "How?" We'll start tomorrow, he said. Together. The warmth in his voice made something inside me tremble. For the first time since the curse began, he sounded like a man with hope. I leaned back against the pillows, exhausted but strangely peaceful. Maybe this was what my mother had meant when she wrote that love was the key. Not just romantic love, but connection, trust, belief. The kind that turned fear into courage. As I drifted toward sleep, I heard Kale whisper something barely audible. The girl who should have died saved us all. I spent a week recovering, though to Kale's constant irritation, I insisted on walking the halls as soon as I could stand. The color had returned to my face, but my body still felt heavy, like I was carrying a shadow inside me. Each time I closed my eyes, I heard echoes of that night, the roar of the cursed wolves, the sound of my own song shattering the air. Vera refused to let me train. You nearly burned your soul to ash, she scolded every time she found me humming. The moonbound gift isn't a weapon, Lyra. It's a bridge between worlds. And bridges take time to rebuild when they break. So I spent my days walking the fortress. I spoke with healers, watched the warriors spar, and learned their names. Some greeted me warmly, others kept their distance. Fear, I'd realized, was a harder curse to break than magic. One evening, as I passed the old archives, I heard voices inside, Kale's and another I didn't recognize. She deserves the truth, Kale was saying. If we want her trust, we can't keep this from her. The other voice, a man's, low and wary, replied, you know what that truth will do to her. It could undo everything. I'll risk it, Kale said firmly. She deserves to know who her enemies are. Curiosity pulled me closer. I pushed the door open. Both men turned. Kale stood near a long table covered in scrolls, while the other, a thin, hawk-eyed scholar, froze mid-argument. Lyra, Kale said quickly. We were just talking about you. So I heard, I said. What truth are we talking about? The scholar glanced at Kale nervously, but Kale gestured for him to leave. When the door closed behind him, Kale sighed. Come here, he said. I crossed the room, my stomach twisting. Kale's face was grim, his golden eyes shadowed by something deeper than worry. I should have told you sooner, he said. The witch who cursed my pack, she wasn't a stranger. She was part of our world. Someone I once trusted. I felt the air tighten around us. Who? He hesitated. Her name was Celine. She was my betrothed. For a moment, I could only stare. You're, what? Before the curse, Kale said quietly, we were allies. Our packs needed peace, and a union between us promised that. She was powerful, too powerful. I thought I could balance her darkness with my loyalty. I was wrong. What happened? She wanted to create a new breed of wolves, he said. Wolves that could never die. She began binding feral spirits to living shifters, experimenting on my people. When I found out, I stopped her. Exiled her. The next night, she returned in smoke and fire and cursed us all. A chill crawled down my spine. So she's still alive? Yes. Hidden. Waiting. His voice hardened. The curse was her revenge. I thought of the blood-red eyes of the feral wolves, the way they screamed when I sang. And she's the one who killed my parents, isn't she? Kale's gaze met mine, filled with guilt. Not directly. But she gave the order. I felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath me. My throat burned, and it was hard to breathe. So this entire time, the woman who destroyed my life has been tied to yours. He reached for me, then stopped short. I never wanted you to bear that burden. I wanted to protect you from it. You can't protect me from the past, I whispered. It's already mine. He looked at me helplessly. If I could undo it, I would. I know, I said quietly. But you can't. So help me face it instead. Something changed in his eyes then, a spark of respect, maybe even pride. Then we face it together, he said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window in my chamber, staring out at the moonlit mountains. My mother's pendant hung heavy around my neck. Celine. The name alone felt like poison. I remembered flashes of my childhood, the night of the fire, the way my mother had whispered run, Lyra before the smoke took her voice. I'd always thought the Redwood Alpha had ordered the attack out of fear of our bloodline. But now I knew. It hadn't been fear. It had been Celine's cruelty. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes. If she wants to destroy what's left of me, I whispered to the night, then she'll have to find me first. And for the first time, the pendant around my neck pulsed with faint warmth, as if in answer. Days later, Kale called me to the war hall again. He looked stronger, more composed. The red flicker in his eyes had dimmed. "We've located something," he said as I entered. "A trail. My scouts found traces of magic near the borderlands, ancient runes in Celine's hand." "Then she's close," I said. "Closer than ever," he agreed. "But if we move too soon, we risk losing her again. I need time to prepare our forces. I want to go with you when you face her." He frowned. "Absolutely not. You said we face this together. This isn't a negotiation, Lyra." I stepped forward, meeting his gaze. "She's tied to my bloodline. You said so yourself. If you go without me, you might never understand what she's done. I might be the only one who can stop her." Kale's jaw clenched. "You don't know what she's capable of." "I don't care," I said. "I've run from monsters my entire life. I won't run from this one." He stared at me for a long moment, then finally sighed. "You're impossible." "So I've been told." He shook his head, but I saw the ghost of a smile. "Fine. But you do exactly as I say when the time comes. No improvising. No heroics." I nodded, relief washing through me. "Deal." "Good," he said. "Now rest. Tomorrow, we train for what's coming." That night, I dreamed again. The moon was red, bleeding light across the forest. A woman stood beneath it, her hair long and black as shadow. Her eyes glowed the same crimson as the cursed wolves. "You wear my mark," she said, her voice echoing like distant thunder. I tried to move, but my feet were rooted to the ground. "Who are you?" "You already know." She smiled, and the sight chilled me to the bone. "Your song burned my curse, little moonbound." I felt it. "But every note you sing ties you closer to me." "No," I whispered. "I'll never be like you." Her laughter filled the sky. "We'll see." The dream shattered like glass. I woke with a scream, heart racing. My hands glowed faintly silver in the moonlight. And for the first time, I understood, Celine wasn't just a witch. She was part of the same ancient magic that lived in my blood. The next morning, Kale found me in the tower garden. The snow had melted into thin streams, and early frost flowers were pushing through the soil. I was trying to focus on breathing, on silence, but my thoughts kept circling back to Celine's words. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Kale said, approaching quietly. "Maybe I have." He studied me. "You dreamed again." "Yes," I said. "She spoke to me." Kale's eyes darkened. "What did she say?" "That I wear her mark. That my song connects us." He swore under his breath. "Then the link between you runs deeper than we thought." I turned to face him. "Kale, if she can reach me through dreams, she can reach the pack too. We need to find her before she finds us." "We will," he said. "But first, you need control. We can't risk another incident like the last one." He led me to the practice chamber where Vera waited with a circle of glowing runes etched into the floor. "We'll focus on containment today," Vera said. "Learn to channel the power without releasing it." I stood in the circle and closed my eyes. The hum began almost instantly now, soft, steady, alive. I let it build, focusing on keeping it inside me. The light under my skin grew brighter. "Good," Vera said. "Now hold it. Don't let it escape." The energy swelled like water behind a dam. My heart pounded. The light spread from my chest to my fingertips, trembling for release. "Lyra, breathe," Kale said quietly. I tried, but the force was too strong. The dam broke. Light burst outward, shaking the room. Kale moved before Vera could react, pulling me into his arms. The moment his hands touched me, the wild magic snapped into focus. It wasn't violent anymore. It was warm, alive, responsive. The runes around us blazed gold, casting long shadows across the walls. "Kale," I gasped. "It's different." He didn't let go. "Then use it. Don't fight it, shape it." I looked up at him. His golden eyes were steady, grounding me. I reached for the magic again, this time guiding it instead of resisting. The light followed my breath, swirling softly around us. It felt like sunlight after a storm. And then, without meaning to, I whispered, "Thank you." He smiled faintly. "For what?" "For believing I could do this." His hand brushed my cheek, gentle. "You made me believe." The moment stretched, quiet, fragile. Then, before I could think, he leaned closer. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first, then sure. The instant we touched, everything inside me ignited. Light flooded the chamber, bright and pure. The air shimmered with sound, a melody I didn't consciously sing but knew by heart. It rose around us like wind, carrying warmth instead of fire. The magic wasn't chaotic anymore. It was complete. When the glow faded, I was trembling, breathless. Kale's arm still held me steady. "What just happened?" I whispered. Vera was staring at us from the edge of the room, wide-eyed. "The song awakened," she said. "The true moonbound resonance. It responds to connection, to love." My cheeks burned. "Love? It's the bond between hearts that frees the gift," Vera said softly. "That's why the moonbound were always healers, not fighters. Only love can hold that much power without breaking." Kale looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Then we have what we need to end the curse." But beneath the determination in his voice, I saw something else, fear. Not of me, but for me. He knew, as I did now, that such power always demanded a price. I stepped closer. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. You promised." He reached out, taking my hand in his. And I never break a promise. The warmth between our palms pulsed once, bright, certain. The bond was real now, as undeniable as the moonlight spilling through the window. For the first time, I felt completely in tune with the world around me. Every sound, every heartbeat, every flicker of magic was part of one great song. I didn't know how or when we would face Celine. I didn't know if we'd survive it. But as Kale's fingers tightened around mine, I knew one truth above all others. The song was no longer just in my blood. It was ours. The days after the awakening passed in a blur of light and fear. The fortress seemed brighter, the air warmer. Word of what had happened between Kale and me spread faster than wildfire. Some wolves bowed when I walked by, whispering that the curse had weakened. Others avoided my gaze entirely, murmuring that I was dangerous. Vera said the truth lay somewhere in between. "Power is never purely good or evil," she told me as we watched the sunrise from the tower. "It reflects the heart that holds it. And hearts can break." I tried to believe mine wouldn't. But every night, I woke to the same sound, the echo of my mother's voice singing in the distance. Each time it grew fainter, as though she was slipping away. Kale was different too. He spent long hours alone in the war hall, studying maps and runes, searching for Celine's next move. Sometimes I would find him staring at the flames, jaw tight, lost in thought. The red in his eyes was gone, but I could still sense the battle inside him. One evening, I joined him. The room was empty except for the two of us and the fire. He didn't look up when I entered. "You're working yourself to death," I said. He gave a humorless laugh. "That's nothing new." "You can't lead if you fall apart," I said, stepping closer. "You told me that once." He turned then, and the exhaustion in his face broke my heart. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her," he said softly. "Celine. I see what she did to my people. And I see her eyes in my dreams, watching me through you." My throat tightened. "She can't use me against you, Kale. I won't let her." "It's not you I fear," he said. "It's what she's made you carry. That connection could destroy you if you push too far." "I have to push," I said. "You said it yourself, the curse feeds on pain and fear. If I stop, it wins." He shook his head. "There's always a cost to power, Lyra. You can't burn this bright without paying for it." I met his gaze steadily. "Then I'll pay it. Whatever it is." The silence that followed was heavy, but something shifted in his expression, a glimmer of pride, maybe even sorrow. "You remind me too much of your mother," he said quietly. "She would have said the same thing." "What happened to her in the end?" I asked. He stared into the fire for a long time before answering. "She stood against Celine when no one else dared. She sang the first binding song to contain the curse. It nearly worked, but it cost her everything. Her life, her voice, and the line of moonbound nearly ended with her." I touched my pendant. "Then she didn't fail. I'm still here." Kale looked at me, his eyes softening. "Yes," he said. "You are." The next morning, the air was thick with tension. The northern scouts had returned, bringing grim news. Entire villages along the border had fallen silent. No smoke, no movement, no life. "She's gathering her army," Kale said grimly as we stood around the map table. "Feral wolves, corrupted shifters, maybe even spirits bound to her will." Storm looked worried. "We're outnumbered 10-1. If she attacks directly, the fortress won't hold." Kale's gaze flicked to me. Then we end this before she reaches us. I frowned. What are you planning? A strike, he said. We go to her. The council erupted in protest. Voices rose and overlapped. Too risky, too soon, too dangerous. Cale silenced them with a single look. She's coming whether we wait or not, he said. If we strike first, we choose the battlefield. And me? I asked quietly. Cale met my eyes. You're the key to ending her curse. But you'll stay protected until the final moment. I'm not hiding while others bleed for my destiny. He stepped closer, his voice low but firm. This isn't about pride, Lyra. It's about survival. I won't risk losing you. You don't get to decide that. He hesitated, then sighed. You really are impossible. Good, I said. Then I fit right in. Despite the tension, a flicker of amusement crossed his face. We leave at dawn. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went to the courtyard, where the moon hung full and silver over the mountains. The fortress was silent except for the soft crunch of snow under my boots. I lifted my hands and began to hum. Just softly, one note, then another. The melody grew, filling the night air with warmth. The snow around me shimmered faintly, and the trees beyond the walls seemed to listen. When the last note faded, I heard footsteps behind me. Cale stood there, watching quietly. You never rest, do you? Not when there's a war coming, I said. He smiled faintly, stepping closer. I came to say something before we go. What? He hesitated, as though weighing his words. If tomorrow goes wrong, if I fall, don't try to save me. My chest tightened. Don't say that. I mean it, he said gently. You're the only one who can stop her. Promise me you'll finish it, no matter what happens to me. I can't make that promise, I said, shaking my head. You have to. No, I said fiercely. Because you're not going to fall. His expression softened. You really do believe that, don't you? I have to, I said. It's the only way I can keep going. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Then keep believing, Lyra. Even if I can't. The next day dawned gray and bitter cold. The pack assembled in the courtyard, armor gleaming in the dim light. The scent of steel and frost filled the air. Cale stood at the front, his presence commanding as always, though his eyes lingered on me for a moment longer than necessary before turning to his soldiers. We fight not for glory, he said, his voice carrying through the morning air, but for the right to live free. To reclaim what was stolen from us. The darkness that hunts us ends today. A chorus of howls answered him. The sound echoed through the mountains like thunder. We rode out at sunrise. The world beyond the fortress was silent, covered in white. 4 hours, the only sound was the crunch of hooves and paws on snow. I rode beside Cale, the cold biting at my cheeks. Storm and Myra flanked us, leading the vanguard. Ronan, Cale's second-in-command, rode behind, grim, silent, unreadable. It wasn't until we reached the valley pass that the first sign of trouble appeared. A crow landed on a nearby tree branch, cawing loudly. Cale frowned. That's not a good omen. Before I could reply, the ground trembled. A blast of wind tore through the valley, scattering snow into the air. Ambush! Myra shouted. Dark shapes erupted from the cliffs above. Wolves, dozens of them, eyes glowing red. Arrows followed, raining down like fire. The pack scattered, shouting in confusion. Cale drew his sword, barking orders. Form ranks. Protect the flanks. I reached for the song inside me, but before I could release it, something hit the ground near us, an explosion of dark magic that sent my horse rearing. I fell, the world spinning. Cale was at my side instantly. Lyra. I'm fine, I gasped, though my ears rang. Where did they come from? He glanced toward the ridge, and froze. Ronan stood there, his sword drawn, surrounded by Celine's soldiers. Cale's voice was low, deadly. No. Ronan met his gaze. I'm sorry, brother. Why? Cale demanded. She promised freedom, Ronan said. Power. A life without the curse. I couldn't say no. Cale's face hardened. You betrayed your pack for a lie. She showed me what you wouldn't, Ronan said bitterly. The moonbound girl is the curse, Cale. End her, and it ends with her. The words sliced through me like a blade. Cale stepped forward, fury radiating from him. You're wrong. Ronan raised his sword. Then you'll die for her. The battle exploded again, fiercer than before. Wolves clashed in a frenzy of claws and steel. I tried to sing, but the noise drowned out my focus. I couldn't find the rhythm. Kale fought his way toward Ronan, their blades meeting in a blur of light and sparks. I saw the moment Ronan feinted left, then slashed upward, cutting deep into Kale's shoulder. "Kale!" I screamed. The sound tore through me, raw, instinctive. The power answered. Light burst from my chest, sweeping across the battlefield. For a moment, everything froze, the wind, the snow, even the falling blood. Then the energy rippled outward in a ring of blinding gold. The feral wolves dropped to the ground, their red eyes flickering back to gold. But the magic was wild again, too much, too fast. Pain shot through my body like fire. I fell to my knees, gasping as the light faded. When my vision cleared, the valley was quiet. The enemy had scattered. Kale knelt a few feet away, blood running down his arm. He reached me first, grabbing my shoulders. "Lyra, stop. You're burning yourself out again." "I had to," I whispered. "He was going to kill you." His hand cupped my face, voice rough with emotion. "Don't ever do that again. I can take a wound. I can't take losing you." Ronan groaned nearby, pinned beneath his own blade. Kale looked down at him, expression torn between rage and sorrow. "Why, Ronan?" he asked softly. Ronan coughed blood, eyes glassy. "You can't fight destiny." Then he went still. Kale bowed his head. "You were my brother," he said quietly. "And I failed you." I touched his arm gently. "He made his choice. So do we." Kale looked at me, his jaw tightening. "Selene knows we're coming. She wanted this to happen. Then she got it," I said. "But she won't win the next time." He stared out over the ruined valley, snow beginning to fall again like ash. "No," he said. "Next time, we end her." As the wind howled around us, I felt the faint hum of the song in my blood, still alive, still waiting. It was weaker now, drained by battle, but it was there. And so was hope. Whatever price this power demanded, I would pay it. Not because I wanted to be a hero, but because love and courage were the only things stronger than fear. And the moon, distant but watching, seemed to shine brighter that night, as if it agreed. The journey to the mountains was slower than we expected. The storm that followed the battle clung to us for 3 days, gray skies, biting wind, snow thick enough to bury a wolf whole. Even Kale's strength began to wane. I could see it in the way his shoulders hunched, the tired set of his jaw. We buried Ronan in the valley before we left. Kale stood silent through the entire ceremony, his eyes fixed on the horizon. When I placed a sprig of frost flower on the grave, he murmured, "He chose his path, but I'll never stop wishing it had been different." No one spoke after that. We moved forward, one step at a time, until the fortress disappeared behind us. By the 5th night, we reached the foothills of the northern peaks. The land there felt different, heavier somehow, pulsing with energy that didn't belong to the earth. The trees leaned inward, their branches whispering like voices. "This is her domain," Kale said. "Selene's magic seeps into the roots here. Be on guard." We set camp near an old ruin that had once been a temple. The stone pillars were cracked, half buried in snow, but faint carvings of the moon were still visible beneath the ice. "This was a moon-bound shrine," Vera said softly, tracing the symbols with her fingertips. "Your ancestors built it, Lyra. They came here to sing under the full moon." I touched the stone. It thrummed faintly under my palm, like a heartbeat. "Then maybe it remembers me." Kale watched me for a moment, his expression unreadable. "If this place still holds power, it might help you channel your song. Or amplify it," Vera warned. "If she's still connected to Selene, using the shrine could give the witch a way through." Kale frowned but didn't argue. "We'll rest tonight. Move at dawn." I woke just before midnight to the sound of whispering. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the voices were too clear, soft, melodic, almost familiar. They were calling my name. I rose quietly, wrapping my cloak around me, and followed the sound toward the ruins. The moon hung low, bright enough to turn the snow silver. When I stepped into the circle of the old temple, the voices stopped. In their place, a soft hum filled the air, the same note that had lived inside me since childhood. "Lyra." The voice came from behind me. I turned, and froze. My mother stood there. Or what looked like her. Her form shimmered faintly, translucent, as if woven from light. Her smile was the same, warm and sad all at once. "Mother?" My throat tightened. How are you here?" Her hand brushed my cheek, cool as moonlight. Part of me remained in the song, she said gently. Bound to the melody you carry. I couldn't leave until you were ready. Tears filled my eyes. Ready for what? To finish what I began, she said. To free the wolves. To end Celine's hold. I don't know if I can. Yes, you do. Her voice softened. The gift was never about power, Lyra. It's about connection. When you sing, you remind the world what it means to feel. That's why the curse breaks, because love is the one thing Celine cannot command. Her words filled me with warmth and sorrow all at once. If that's true, then why did you die? Because love also demands sacrifice, she said. You'll understand soon. Before I could ask what she meant, the air trembled. The vision flickered, and in her place stood another figure. Celine. She was as beautiful as she was terrible. Her black hair floated around her like smoke, and her red eyes glowed with a cruel light. Touching, she said, voice dripping with amusement. A mother's ghost and a daughter's tears. How sweet. I stepped back, heart pounding. You don't belong here. Oh, but I do, she purred. This place was mine before it was yours. I built these shrines to channel the moon's power, long before your kind corrupted it. You twisted it, I said. You cursed it. She smiled. I improved it. The wolves were weak, bound by love, by pity. I gave them strength. Strength that kills, I snapped. Strength that survives, she corrected. You'll see soon enough, child. You carry my blood too. I froze. What? Her smile widened. Did Kale never tell you? How amusing. Your mother wasn't the only one who loved the wrong man. She was my sister. The world tilted. No, I whispered. Oh yes, Celine said, laughter echoing like a storm. Two daughters of the moonbound, two halves of the same song. One chose love. The other, power. And now you must choose which one you'll be. The air around her pulsed with black energy. I stumbled backward, reaching for my voice, but the sound caught in my throat. Soon, Lyra, she said, fading into the night. When the moon turns red, you'll come to me. You won't have a choice. The world went dark. When I woke, Kale was shaking me gently, his face pale. Lyra, wake up. What happened? I saw her, I gasped. Celine. She came through the shrine. Vera's eyes widened. Then she knows where we are. Kale's expression hardened. We move now. Before she reaches us. But. No arguments, he said. We leave before dawn. As I gathered my things, I glanced back at the temple one last time. The carvings on the stone still glowed faintly, pulsing with silver light. My mother's voice echoed in my memory, love demands sacrifice. I didn't yet understand what that meant, but I feared I would soon. We climbed through the mountains all that day, the path narrowing with each mile. The storm had passed, leaving the sky clear and painfully bright. By dusk, we reached the summit, a vast plateau of ice and rock. In the distance stood a dark spire, rising from the earth like a wound. Lightning arced around it, feeding into a swirling vortex of shadow. The heart of her power, Vera whispered. The eclipse spire. Celine was waiting for us. The moment we stepped onto the plateau, the wind died. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. Then, with a sound like cracking ice, the air split open, and Celine appeared. She floated above the spire, her black robes rippling like smoke. So, the children of light finally arrive, she said, her voice echoing across the mountain. Kale stepped forward, sword drawn. This ends tonight. Indeed, Celine said, smiling coldly. But not how you hope. At her gesture, the ground trembled. From the cracks in the ice, figures emerged, feral wolves, hundreds of them, their eyes glowing red. Kale's soldiers formed a line around me, but I could see the fear in their faces. Even Kale's hand trembled slightly as he gripped his sword. Stay behind me, he said. No, I said quietly. This is my fight too. Before he could answer, the wolves attacked. The battlefield exploded into chaos. Steel clashed against claws, and the air filled with snarls and screams. Kale moved like a storm, cutting through enemies with brutal precision, but there were too many. I felt the song building inside me again, wild, desperate, unstoppable. I reached for it, but Celine's laughter filled my mind. Go on, she whispered. Sing for me, little one. Let's see which sister's blood runs stronger. The pain hit like fire. My chest burned, my vision blurred. I dropped to my knees. Kale saw me fall. Lyra. He fought his way toward me, cutting through enemies, but Celine's magic struck him mid-stride, throwing him back. He hit the ground hard. Blood stained the snow. Something inside me broke. The world went silent except for the sound of my heartbeat. I rose slowly, the pendant at my throat glowing brighter than the moon. Celine's voice taunted me. You can't save him. I looked up at her. Watch me. The song erupted from me, pure and unbroken. It wasn't just sound, it was light, memory, and love woven into one. It swept across the battlefield like a storm. The red faded from the wolves' eyes. The shadows recoiled. The spire cracked, releasing a scream that shook the mountains. Celine staggered, fury twisting her face. No. You can't. I took another breath, pouring everything I had left into the melody. The wind rose with it, carrying voices, my mother's, Kale's, every wolf who'd ever suffered under the curse. The sound became a chorus, filling the world. Celine shrieked, her form unraveling into smoke and ash. You'll destroy yourself. Then I'll take you with me, I said, and sang the final note. The light burst outward, blinding, endless. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the sky was pale again. The spire was gone, reduced to rubble. Snow fell softly, glittering like dust. Kale was kneeling beside me, his face streaked with blood but alive. He touched my cheek, his hand trembling. Lyra, you did it. I smiled weakly. We did it. The world around us was quiet now. The wolves were shifting back to human form, their eyes clear and golden. The curse was gone. But I could feel the exhaustion pulling at me, deeper than before. The song had taken nearly everything I had left. Kale must have sensed it. Stay with me, he said urgently. Don't fade. I reached for his hand. I'm not fading, I whispered. Just resting. He pulled me against his chest, his heartbeat strong beneath my ear. You can rest when we're home. I smiled faintly. Home. I liked the sound of that. The moon shone bright above us, its light no longer cold but warm. And for the first time in centuries, the wolves howled not in mourning, but in joy. The curse had broken. The night was free. And the song that had shattered darkness became, at last, a lullaby. The morning after the battle dawned still and bright, the sky brushed in pale gold. Snow sparkled across the valley where the eclipse spire had once loomed. The air no longer carried the metallic tang of corruption. Instead, it smelled of pine, frost, and renewal. The wolves, freed from Celine's control, moved quietly through the wreckage, gathering their fallen, tending their wounded, and whispering prayers of gratitude to the moon. I woke to the sound of those voices. My body ached with the deep, bone-heavy exhaustion that comes after using too much power, but I was alive. My first thought was of Kale. He sat nearby, his back against a rock, watching the sunrise. His arm was bound where Celine's magic had struck him, but the color had returned to his face. When I stirred, his gaze snapped toward me, relief flooding his expression. You're awake, he said, voice rough with emotion. I'm hard to get rid of, I murmured, attempting a smile. He laughed softly, but the sound broke halfway. You scared me again. I sat up slowly. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. For a while, we simply sat together, the silence comfortable. Around us, the pack worked quietly, but their movements were gentler now, their eyes bright. For the first time since I had met them, I saw peace among them. What happens now? I asked eventually. Kale looked out toward the horizon. We rebuild. We bury the dead, honor their sacrifice, and start again. And the curse? Gone, he said simply. You broke it. The words felt unreal. I looked down at my hands, half expecting to see the silver light still glowing there. It wasn't just me, I said softly. It was all of us. He turned back to me then, his gaze lingering. You're too humble for your own good. And you're too stubborn, I countered. A faint smile curved his lips. That's what makes us a good pair. The words hung in the air between us, warm and tentative. I met his eyes, my heart pounding. 4 months, we had fought side by side, clashing and growing and surviving. Now, for the first time, there was no battle left to distract us from what had always been there, something stronger than fate, gentler than power. Kale reached for my hand, hesitating only a moment before his fingers closed around mine. Lyra, he said quietly, in every lifetime, I think I'd find you. The honesty in his voice made my breath catch. That's a long time to look. I'd wait longer if it meant finding you again, he said. I squeezed his hand, smiling faintly. Then you're stuck with me. Gladly. That evening, the pack gathered beneath the full moon. A great bonfire burned at the heart of the clearing, its flames reflecting in the snow. The ceremony was both celebration and mourning, songs of gratitude for freedom, and laments for those lost. Vera moved among the wolves, blessing each one with moon water. When she reached me, she pressed a small vial into my hand. For you, she said softly. To remind you of what you've restored. Thank you, I said, tucking it into my cloak. Then Kale stepped forward. He stood tall and proud, his voice carrying easily through the night. The curse is broken, he said. But our unity, our pack, is what saved us. And one among us carried the song that made that possible. Dozens of golden eyes turned toward me. I wanted to look away, but Kale reached for my hand and drew me forward. Lyra of the Moonbound, he said, his tone both reverent and intimate. You came to us as a stranger, as a lost soul hunted by the past. You became our savior, our healer, and mine. My throat tightened. He took a deep breath, his next words steady but soft enough that only I might have heard if not for the silent night. Before the moon and the pack, I ask, will you stand beside me? As Alpha and Luna. As my mate. The world seemed to still. The fire crackled softly, the wind whispering through the pines. I had faced witches and curses and death itself. Yet nothing felt as terrifying, or as right, as this moment. I will, I said, my voice trembling. A murmur rippled through the crowd, growing into a joyous chorus of howls that rose to the heavens. Kale smiled, truly smiled, and reached up to trace the pendant at my throat. The silver light within it flared to life, and he pressed his forehead to mine. The bond, he whispered. Light surrounded us both, soft and golden. The magic wasn't painful this time, it was warm, steady, alive. I felt his heartbeat merge with mine, our breaths sinking as if we had always shared the same rhythm. The bond settled between us like a promise written in the stars. When the glow faded, he kissed me, lightly, reverently. A kiss not of fire, but of belonging. The pack howled again, their voices carrying across the mountains. For the first time, the sound wasn't one of mourning or rage, it was celebration. Later, when the crowd had dispersed and the fires burned low, Kale and I walked together along the edge of the forest. The moonlight pooled around us like silver water. Do you ever think about what comes after? I asked quietly. He looked at me, brow furrowed. After. After peace. After the rebuilding. What happens when there's nothing left to fight? He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, then we live. We learn how to laugh again. How to breathe without waiting for the next battle. And you? I asked. Can you really stop fighting? He smiled faintly. I'll try. You make it easier. I smiled back, leaning into his shoulder. The sound of wolves howling in joy echoed behind us, and for the first time in my life, I felt the world truly quiet inside me. The curse was gone. The nightmares were fading. And love, real, patient love, had taken root in the space left behind. The moon hung high above us, whole and bright, and I thought I could almost hear it sing. Years passed, though the memory of that night never faded. The fortress had been rebuilt, its black stones scrubbed clean of centuries of sorrow. Where once there had been cages and curses, there were gardens now, full of flowers that bloomed silver under the moonlight. The pack thrived again. Pups raced through the courtyards, laughter echoing in the halls. The howls that rose each night were songs of joy, not pain. I stood on the balcony one morning, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The world felt softer now, though it still carried the weight of its stories. Kale joined me, his hair touched with a few strands of silver that only made him more striking. He slipped an arm around my waist. You're up early, he murmured. Couldn't sleep, I said. The moon was full. It always sings louder then. He smiled. Does it still sound the same? I shook my head. No. It's quieter now. Peaceful. Below us, two small figures darted across the courtyard, a boy and a girl, both with golden eyes that gleamed in the light. Their laughter carried up to us, bright and boundless. They're growing fast, Kale said softly. Too fast, I replied with a fond smile. Our children, Alaric and Myra, had been born under the same moon that had once cursed our people. But instead of fear, their births brought hope. They carried both my blood and Kale's strength, uniting the magic of Moonbound and Wolf in a way that neither side had ever thought possible. The world beyond our mountains was changing too. Packs that had once been enemies now traded and feasted together. Songs were sung again in the temples that had been silent for generations. Every few moons, travelers came to our gates, wolves seeking to hear the tale of the curse breaker and the alpha who loved her. I always told them the same thing, that the story wasn't about power, but about faith. About choosing love even when the world said it was weakness. That evening, the pack gathered once more under the moon. This time, it wasn't for war or mourning, it was for remembrance. The courtyard glowed with lanterns. Kale stood at the front, his voice steady as he spoke to the next generation. "We were bound once by darkness," he said. "But even in the deepest night, one voice can bring back the dawn. The moonbound gift taught us that strength isn't in teeth or claws, it's in the courage to care, even when it hurts." When he finished, I stepped forward, the old pendant around my neck glowing softly. I sang. It wasn't a song of battle or sorrow. It was a lullaby, a gentle melody that carried over the pack, wrapping them in warmth. The air shimmered faintly with light, and I saw tears in the eyes of the older wolves who remembered what had been lost. When the song ended, there was silence. Then, one by one, the wolves lifted their heads and howled, their voices weaving into the melody like harmony. It wasn't just a sound anymore, it was a promise. Later that night, when the fires had dimmed and the pack slept, I stood again beneath the moon. The forest was quiet, the air cool. Kale joined me, slipping his hand into mine. "Do you think they'll remember us?" I asked softly. "Of course," he said. "Legends don't fade. But even if they did, it wouldn't matter. What matters is the peace we've built for them." I looked up at the sky. "Do you ever miss the fight?" He smiled. "Sometimes. But then I look at you, and I realize I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." I rested my head on his shoulder. "The moon doesn't sing to those who hide from it," I said quietly. "Only to those brave enough to answer." He squeezed my hand. "And you answered?" I smiled, closing my eyes as the wind whispered through the trees. The moonlight shimmered on the stones below, tracing patterns that looked almost like writing. Maybe one day, our children would read them. Maybe they'd hear the same song I once did. The song of love, of courage, of rebirth. The song that said even the darkest night could be broken by a single voice brave enough to sing. And in that silence, beneath the eternal light of the moon, I finally understood. Our story had never been about curses or battles. It had been about finding harmony in the chaos, light in the shadow, and home in another heart. The world turned, the moon watched, and the wolves sang, free, forever. If you felt the pull of Moonbound, the Song of Shadows, don't let the story end here. Subscribe, like, and ring the bell so you never miss the next chapter in this world of wolves, love, and destiny. Share the howl, spread the magic, and join our pack, because every voice keeps the story alive. Wolf Face Fire #Moonbound #Fantasy Story #subscribe.